Hey everyone, welcome back to another GRE video. I'm Alice and we are going to continue our journey through verbal discrete questions today. What we're talking about today is another triple blank question in the medium category. Brace yourselves, and if it's a little bit difficult for you, make sure to check out the playlist for all of the previous videos so you can get caught up with all of the different techniques and examples that I've already gone through. For today, what I want you to keep in mind is that you really don't need to know anything about the actual subject material of the sentence to answer the question. So the sentence that you see will have everything that you need to answer the question as long as you're familiar with the vocabulary. That is the one thing that you do have to come in with previous knowledge of, but in terms of the subject knowledge, they might be talking about something you've never heard of or are totally unfamiliar with, and that is completely okay, and I'll show you how to navigate that. The example that we have here today is a tiny little paragraph. We will go through it, but it has 3 different blanks, and remember that each of these blanks does count as a separate question, so feel free to spend a little bit more time if you need it and not rush through all of these different questions. Statements presented as fact in a patent application are blank unless a good reason for doubt is found. The invention has only to be deemed more likely than not to work in order to receive initial approval. And although thousands of patents are challenged in court for other reasons, no incentive exists for anyone to expend effort blank the science of an erroneous patent. For this reason, the endless stream of blank devices will continue to yield occasional patents. Feel free to pause and read it over if you need to do that, but let's break it down a bit. First, obviously, we're talking about patent applications, which is definitely not a topic that I'm familiar with, and unless you have gone through it yourself or somehow are interested in it, you probably don't either. But that is totally fine. As you can see, the language that's used in the actual sentences is not that difficult. We also have a lot of key phrases here that tell us what everything is about. The first one is this: unless a good reason for doubt is found. What we have is a patent application that we just immediately believe, and we're assuming that everything in there is true because we have no good reason to doubt it. And then we also have this other place that says, although thousands of patents are challenged in court for other reasons, we also have this other sentence, although thousands of patents are challenged. So what we know is thousands of patents are challenged for other reasons, but there is no incentive for anyone to expend effort blank the science of an erroneous patent. When we're looking at challenging patents, they might be erroneous, meaning totally wrong or completely stupid, but there's no incentive for anyone to expend effort. So here you can sort of think about, well, you're probably expending effort to disprove the science somehow. And then because of this, as a result of all of that, we will have some sort of occasional patents. So as we go through it, we want to break it down sentence by sentence, and we'll focus more on the first sentence here, mostly because we have a lot of information about it. So we have a patent information where statements are presented as fact unless a good reason for doubt is found, and the invention only has to be deemed more likely than not to work. If we take a closer look at this, essentially facts are generally believed and standards for these claims are not that high. So in some instances, like pharmacy for example, medications do have to be better than the existing medications to be approved. But in patents, you might be inventing something completely new, completely different, and so there's no real reason that it has to work perfectly. Remember, in these types types of blank questions, we have 3 answer choices for each blank. A is presumed verifiable, B is carefully scrutinized, and C is considered capricious. Now, if you're not familiar with that, capricious means kind of uncertain or somehow unknown and prone to change. If we look at all of these different options, we are looking for a word that shows that statements are not really scrutinized very deeply, and we're really not looking for anything unless a good reason for doubt is found. Pay attention to that special transition word, because unless tells us that the first part of the sentence draws a contrast with the second part of the sentence. Here, there's probably no good reason for doubt. If we look at each of the choices, presumed verifiable, that makes sense because the statements are presented as fact in the application. We assume that it's true unless a good reason for doubt is found. That makes the first part of the sentence a direct opposite to the second part of the sentence, which is exactly what the word unless does. For B, carefully scrutinized, this doesn't make sense because the statements presented as fact are not really looked at that closely. As we can see, the second sentence saying that the invention only has to work more likely than not, it's really not a high barrier of entry. We're not requiring a lot from these patents, so careful scrutinization doesn't seem to fit the bill here. We also have considered capricious, something that's kind of uncertain or changing a lot, but there's no information or no indication that anything is changing, that we're discovering new things or that circumstances are going to be different. C doesn't make sense either, and for that reason, the answer here is presumed verifiable. In a patent application, statements presented as fact are presumed verifiable, so we're going to assume that whatever is said in the patent application is true. Going on to the next 2 blanks, we'll look at those together. Remember, we're talking about thousands of patents being challenged in court for other reasons. There's no incentive for anyone to expend effort, blank, the science of an erroneous patent. For this, we have no incentive to challenge an erroneous patent or one that doesn't work, that doesn't have true information in it. Basically, there is no reason to challenge one of these. The answer choices are corroborating, advancing, or debunking. Corroborating means to support or provide evidence for, and of course, we're not really talking about that because we're talking in the context of challenging different patents. The key transition word that I haven't highlighted here is although. This means that there is a difference between the first part of the sentence and the second part of the sentence. The first part of the sentence says that patents are challenged for many different reasons. The second part of the sentence, as a contrast, says that there's no incentive for us to challenge this erroneous patent. Corroborating or supporting doesn't make sense. Advancing is also along those lines. Advancing not only means supporting, but going even further and providing more information to help support the science. That doesn't make sense either because, again, we're talking about challenging the patent because it's erroneous. C makes a lot of sense because we are debunking or disproving the science of an erroneous patent. Patents can be challenged and are challenged for many different reasons, but there's no real reason for somebody to debunk the science of an erroneous patent. So hopefully that logic makes sense. And then the second sentence here is for this reason. So because there's no incentive to challenge these bad patents, the endless stream of blank devices will continue to yield occasional patents. We're probably thinking of a word that means bad devices, basically to align with this idea that we have erroneous patents. So the patents are bad and nobody's challenging them. That will lead to bad devices. So a word sort of like that, we can choose between novel, bogus, and obsolete. All of these words do sort of make sense, but we're picking the best one. Novel just means new, and all devices from patents are going to be new because that's what patents are for. They're for protecting new and different ideas. Novel doesn't really fit here because it's not focusing in on those bad, erroneous patents. Now we have the word bogus, which does actually mean erroneous, so totally ridiculous, and ones that don't work would be bogus. Bogus devices are certainly going to result from bad patents. Choice F here, obsolete, doesn't quite make sense because obsolete really means out of use or out of date. And while it would be weird to have an obsolete device that is being patented, it does make sense, but the key point here is that it's not really aligning with the idea of bad science or an erroneous patent, which is the key phrase that is in the previous sentence. So here I would choose bogus because we have erroneous patents leading to bogus devices as a result. Looking at the whole paragraph is a really great way to just make sure that you have the correct words for each of the different blanks. The whole thing is here. Statements presented as fact in a patent application are presumed verifiable unless a good reason for doubt is found. The invention only has to be deemed more likely than not to work in order to receive initial approval. And although thousands of patents are challenged in court for other reasons, no incentive exists for anyone to expend effort debunking the science of an erroneous patent. For this reason, the endless stream of bogus devices will continue to yield occasional patents. Again, we have patent applications presumed to be true. They only have to work more likely than not, and because of that, we have no reason to debunk that science, and we're going to be left with bogus or terrible bad devices that are patented, but there's no reason to do anything about that. Hopefully that breaks down a complex paragraph into a lot more simple blanks. Keep in mind that we really didn't know too much about the subject material. All you have to know is the definition of a patent, which of course is an intellectual protection of an idea, and you are able to answer the question based solely on the information in the sentence in front of you. If you're looking for more information on how you can actually implement these tips and tricks into getting a better score on your GRE, please visit AliceChenGRE.com. I have more information about what it's like to work with me. For example, that I was patient and kind, I explained things to Sarah thoroughly and offered examples and tips. With Joshua, I gave him a better understanding of what he should work on to get over that 150 score that he was aiming for. I have more information about how private GRE tutoring works with me. For example, you can choose between writing, quantitative, and or the verbal section. I will give you a customized study plan with session agendas for each time we meet. I can provide sample questions, different study resources, do a content review, go over strategies and examples with you, and as always, I offer flexible payment and scheduling options. Thanks so much for watching!